How to become a web developer in 2022, a high-level path. Before I spill out all the secrets, hit the like button, I'd really appreciate that, and consider subscribing. We talk all sorts of IT careers and IT businesses here. I think you'll love the practical tips, and now let's begin. Now, firstly, is it still worth to become a web developer in 2022? Like, does it still pay well, and will you find opportunities after you finish your informal education? After the terrible time some had in 2020, this is quite a relatable question. Fortunately, the prospects for this career still look good. In fact, the US Bureau of Labor Statistics predicts the increase of 13% of tech jobs opportunities during 2022. And I'm sure the things are pretty much similar outside of US. Of course, your salary will vary depending on your skill stack, on your seniority level, the languages you are specializing in, and so on. But still, the median pay for a regular web development role is around 80,000 per year. And this is like an entry or medium level positions. Now, the next question you might be asking yourself before starting your path and become a web developer in 2022, is it difficult to become a web developer? And the short answer is no, but difficulty can mean different things to different people. Like, there have been thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people who learned web programming, who learned programming overall, and who took their opportunities and became a seasoned software engineers. And all of them learned web programming from scratch, and you can do that too. But it will require from you patience and persistence. The question you should be asking yourself, in fact, should be, will I enjoy being a software engineer or a web developer? Because in fact, what distinguishes the successful lot who became web developers from those who failed is actually the fact that they stuck to their learnings despite it being challenging at times, and it will be challenging, and you will not give up if you find this fascinating, if you find it interesting, and if you know why you do that, why you learned that, why you spend hours and hours on Googling and trying to find new resources and trying to find the solution to your issue. That's what will distinguish you from the rest, and that what will make you become a software engineer. Because be prepared, software career will have tons of situations when you will be facing frustrating moments when you just simply don't know what to do and where to find the solution for your problem, and you will be stuck and you will be sitting and you will be trying to understand how to solve it. The next question you might be asking yourself, what education do I need to become a software engineer, a web developer in 2022? And in fact, you don't really need any formal education, though you can choose this path if you want to. But in fact, there are again thousands and thousands of people who became web developers and software engineers by simply watching YouTube videos, doing the tasks, going through online courses, and who in fact chose this path to become successful in their software careers. Specifically, you can absolutely learn from free resources about such things as HTML, CSS, and even some programming languages like Java, JavaScript, Python, or Ruby on Rails, depending on the specific path you're about to take. Later on, you will learn about some frameworks like Node or React or whatever. It really depends on the direction you're about to take, but yet you can absolutely learn those things from open resources. Academic background is crucial and is important for senior level positions such as, say, software engineer or data engineer, because for these positions you will have to understand the IT in depth. So what are actual information technologies, how those technologies correlate with each other, and how this entire thing looks like. You should be overseeing all of that, and that's what will distinguish you from the rest. So for those positions, yes, probably some academic background would be great. But if you don't have this background, this is no reason to stop you from following your web developer path. Another important question before you jump into your web development learning path is, how long does it take to become a web developer? And here there is no right answer, because typically it takes from 3 to 6 months of active learning, but this truly differs depending on the time and effort you put into your learning path into your learning efforts, because some people are overloaded with family issues, with kids, with their full-time jobs, maybe even two of them. And of course, on top of that, the learning path will take more because simply you cannot dedicate a lot of time. But if you're like less loaded, if you only say work a full-time job and you can have all the evenings to yourself and all the weekends to yourself, of course your learning path will be much less. But you should be building your first like major project in about 6 months, and after 12 or 18 months you will find yourself in the position to apply to your first role. Of course, if you do your homework, if you learn, and if you continue learning and not, give up, it might take either less or more. It really depends on your situation. I just gave you like general expectations. What you should be focusing on is learning and becoming better every day, and on working on projects worth demonstrating. Now let's break the entire process of becoming a web developer in 2022 into some steps. And the step 1 would be learning the fundamentals of web development. Now, what do I mean by fundamentals? This is basically where you will learn how the web works, what it actually is. It's not something unfeasible. It should be understandable for you, what it is not, and how it works. And on this stage, you will also learn some basics like HTML or CSS, and contrary to what many may think, HTML and CSS are not actually programming languages. These kinds of languages are simply determining how the content is structured, as opposed to the programming languages that actually do things. And learning HTML and CSS is pretty much simple, and it may take like a week of your time. This is the basics and you will understand that pretty fast. But because it's fast and easy, don't think that you can skip this, because it's important that you understand the basics and don't move further until you actually understand what is web and how it works. Step 2 for you would be choosing a specialization. Now that you know how the web works, you will face yourself with the question: would you like to become a front-end or a back-end developer? What do you like most, working with the user interface side or with the back-end, something that users don't see? You have the third option though, and that is become a full-stack developer. And full-stack developers simply combine those two. They can work on both front-end issues and back-end issues. Now, the step 3 implies that you should choose your programming language. Now that you sort of know HTML and CSS, the next thing I would advise you to learn as a web developer is JavaScript, because these are like markup languages and you might probably use these languages on your first interviews. But of course, there are other programming languages that are used in the field, and as a web developer, if you want to become a web developer in 2022, here are some of the languages that you might consider, and those are JavaScript, PHP, Python, Ruby on Rails, Go, Objective-C and Swift, C#, Java, Kotlin, and some others. You will also need to learn the SQL. That is not truly a programming language, but is crucial to understand how databases operate and how databases work. By the way, a small interruption here. If you don't know which IT direction you want to take, grab the guide on IT professions in the description box below. I have outlined there both tech and non-tech positions just in case, so you can choose from a variety of those. Go and grab this guide, it's absolutely free. And let's roll on to the next step, and that is how to learn web development. Now that you have a vague idea on who you would like to become, there is a lot of resources on the web to go and learn what you have chosen. And I have actually done a video on the best online resources, free online resources where you can learn programming. So go and check out this video of mine where I talk about that in more details, where I provide the resources with both of their pros and cons. Those are free resources, but of course there are also paid courses that you might want to take. But I advise you to start with free courses, because like in the middle of it, you might understand that this is actually not what you like. You may start, say, with Java, and then you're like, nah, I don't like this logic and I want to switch to, say, Python, or I actually want to work more with databases. Then your choice will be SQL. I advise you starting with free courses, and then as soon as you realize, I want to learn more about this particular thing, then you can go and buy yourself a paid course, but not until that. Step 5 will imply you to build your first software or web development projects. With the basics in your bag and with knowledge of some programming languages, even if you are still learning, you will learn all the time. Web development career and software engineering career is not a career where you learn something and you apply it to the rest of your life. No, you will have to learn constantly and you should be prepared for that. But with the knowledge of basics and with some knowledge of programming languages, you can go out and look for projects to accomplish. And this should not be like anything crazy, but you can already work on some like smaller or simpler projects or tasks or like tiny bit of it. And this is important because it will help you to step out of your comfort zone and learn something new and learn faster, because the fastest way to learn something is to put yourself under the stress of working on a real project, not just test project. These projects will become part of your portfolio, which you will present during your full-time job interviews. And where you can find those projects? Probably on some freelancing platforms if you don't have any acquaintances in the field. And where you might go? To Upwork, and I have made playlists about how to start looking for Upwork jobs and how to make it there, so go and check this out after this episode. You should in fact prepare a handful of these projects that challenge different skills from your skill set before sending our applications to job positions, and this is going to be the last step of you becoming a web developer in 2022. And like I mentioned, step 6 implies that you apply for the positions, because yes, your objective might be to become a freelance web developer, but I advise you to start with a full-time job, because with experience it will be easier for you to become a freelance web developer, which is an entirely different story. Now, how do you apply? You put into your resume all the skills that you learned and all the projects that you worked on and the outcome that you've made on those projects. Of course, when you're just like an entry job applicant, you might not have a lot of impact, but still try to present the effectiveness of your work even on smaller projects. And I have made a separate video on how to outline a perfect CV for a software engineer with some examples and what is good and what is bad in them in this video of mine. Go and check this out, it might be helpful for you. But remember, keep learning and keep working on smaller projects, because IT is not an industry where you learn something and then you apply it to the rest of your days. Now, another question you might be asking yourself: what tools do I need for learning web development? And as a beginner, you might probably not be needing anything much, because a lot of courses offer browser-based coding environments, but I recommend you installing a code editor, and there are some free options available like Sublime Text, Atom and Vim. Coding in a real coding environment from the very start is a good practice for your future career as a web developer. And the next thing I want you to know, it's never too late to learn coding. Like, yes, there is an ageism in tech industry. Check out this video of mine. I know people who started their IT careers at 45, so it really depends on you and the effort you put in. If you want to become a web developer in 2022, let's do this together, and meanwhile, I'll see you in my next video.